goes through Macca's. He has the exact same order, and he's been doing it for like 60 years. Dude is still kicking into his 90s.
So he has Macca's every single day?
Yeah, he has Macca's every single morning.
Damn.
Yeah, and he was asked, like, how much money do you have? And he's just like, well, not a lot. Like, I have, like, some money in a safety deposit box in the bank, but all my wealth that people keep quoting, it's just locked up in Berkshire shares.
Yeah.
And then he's like, when I die, all that is flagged for philanthropy.
Oh, wow.
So he's just I'm not living like this billionaire lifestyle. I am the richest man in the world, but
He keeps it super humble.
Well, he's lived in the same house that he's owned for 40 years. Yeah.
50s.
He's got the same shitty car, and he still drives himself. Doesn't have a computer on his desk at work. And then he's just like, and I'm like the happiest person in the world.
Yeah.
I'm going to do the Warren Buffett morning routine.
Yeah.
Macca's, no computer.
You can have Taylor Swift. I'll get Warren Buffett.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Lock me in for that.
Stitched up so hard.
I already did that.
Actually, I'll take the Andrew Huberman.
Morning routine. No, his nighttime routine smashing.
Good night. Good night.
Yeah.
Good night. Good night. Good night.
His multiple good night routines.
Do you already have a burner phone?
45 minutes of good night texts to my miscellaneous mistresses, and then off to bed.
No, you just forward in the same one.
Yeah.
You know what I was thinking? Like, if this episode...
You accidentally put him in a group chat.
Yeah. If this episode's about making money, I feel like a sort of life hack for you could be setting up your own like AI cam. Then you just like rent out to people.
Other people
that want to chat to you.
I saw this. A guy made. He was a programmer, and I saw a TikTok of it, and he made a database to interact with Tinder, and he used AI and download the personality traits of the guy from American Psycho. And Barney from How I Met Your Mother, or one of those. Yeah. And used it to swipe right on every single person and like talk like those characters would be. So it uses like lines from the movies and things like that.
Success rate?
Yeah, really high.
Oh, no.
Really high. So this is a shout out to anyone in programming. Please hit us up.
Hit us up.
I saw one where like this chick set up her own AI.
Yeah.
Like, so it's her as an AI.
Yeah.
And then people could pay by the minute to talk to it.
Really?
And then I think they were making a crazy amount of money within like the first week. Like, just you think of how much people would be paying per minute.
Yeah.
Just to talk to this AI character off her.
Bro, they'll start doing that with like Instagram, Facebook, OnlyFans, all those ones. They'll just have like,
well, they have their management team.
Now.
Yeah, you're talking to their manager.
Yeah.
You're not, you're
That's
not talking
crazy.
to the artist.
No.
Yeah, creeps.
Yeah. You filthy animals.
You absolutely dirty animals. No. How was everyone's weekend?
It's been good.
It was good.
Yeah. What did we do? I started yesterday morning with gym, and then we went and did pickleball. Yep. Another really just like social, fun, non-competitive day.
Yeah, it was good. It was good.
Remained friends after.
We've all made
feelings.
it through.
Yeah.
We're improving.
Our friendship, our resilience is improving. That was really, really nice.
Then we went to bleep it out.
No. Okay. We'll tell the story.
Yeah, we'll tell the story, but if you want to bleep it.
I will bleep it.
Yeah. Because we don't want to put another cafe out of business.
Yeah. Although this one is honestly probably should have.
We were all laughing about it, but it could be pretty serious.
Yeah. Okay.
So we all caught up for coffee at
said cafe.
Yeah. And do you want to tell the story about what happened to you?
Yeah. So I
really break it down.
Done an hour of gym, done an hour of pickleball. I was ready for some breakfast. So, classic, ordered my coffee, ordered a bacon and egg roll, and coffees came out instantly. Got to say that to them.
And we were complimenting them. We were like,
love
wow.
the cafe for the speediness of their coffees.
10-second coffees.
Asked for an ice mocha on lactose-free milk because I'm lactose intolerant, and it came out with a fat scoop of ice cream in it. So... that was the first strike.
That was the first red flag.
Yeah, so I apologise to my roommates
Selective
for that
lactose. I like it in my ice cream, but not in my milk.
And I was like, I'm not going to reorder it. I'm just going to drink it. So that was the first strike. Second thing, my breakfast comes out, and you were sitting across from me.
I was sitting. Cam on the camera.
Beeling.
Cam B. Yeah. We were sitting opposite. So the plate came out served one way.
Yeah.
But you couldn't really see it from your angle because these two sandwiches were like spliced on top of each other.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the backside of the sandwich. Yeah. And there seems to be a very definitive bite being taken out.
Yeah.
And I thought initially, this must be some kind of like artisan, like cool way of serving sandwiches now, where it's a bit chonky and there's, it's not all there.
And I thought that when they make the sandwich, like the bread just rips.
Yeah, maybe the bread's just ripped.
Yeah.
It's
one
ripped,
of those buns.
It ripped in a way that
Perfect
looks like
half
teeth
semicircle.
biting out of it. So I turned to Cam and I go, hey, mate, does that look like
A
a
bite
bite
out.
out of Cam's
Just
sandwich?
trying to be nice, trying to alert him.
Just trying to
Look at it.
And then I tell Cam, and I go, just look at your sandwich for a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we take...
No,
takes-
pause.
Pause?
I considered whether I just eat it or
Well,
not.
yeah, that's
right, you're still
going to eat it.
I was like, if it's just a bite out, I can just eat around. I'm really hungry. And I'm like sitting there considering it. I was like, do I just eat it? And both in unison, Ben and Beeling go, no, you dickhead, take it back.
Don't eat it. So what did you then do with the sandwich, Cam?
So I walk back up and say, hey guys, there's a bite out of my sandwich. Could I have another one, please? And they're like, oh yeah, sorry, we'll bring another one right out.
Pretty casual
so
about it. What was
very
their
casual.
reaction
They
to
didn't
it?
say, oh, no, that's not a bite.
That's not
or
a
they
bite?
weren't like,
No, they said, they're like, oh yeah, that's a bite. Sorry, we'll make you another one.
and they weren't like, that's
Okay.
your
So
bite.
cas, so lax.
So
like,
they
They're
were
like,
casual.
oh, he caught us.
yeah.
So then you come back out,
come back out.
and then
We're sitting down
we're
laughing.
sitting outside on a table laughing about it. The lady on the table behind us decides to kind of chirp in, sorry, I was, overhearing your conversation. I had just ordered a sandwich, took a bite out of it. It wasn't what I ordered, so I've sent it
So
back.
she's also lactose,
And she
can't
is-
eat cheese.
Had cheese on it.
Yeah, it had cheese on it, so she took a bite out of it. It's like, this has cheese on it, I can't eat it. Sent it back, and like, well, we've got another one coming out, and just handed it on to me.
Long and short of it, Cam was about to eat a secondhand sandwich.
Yeah. And she goes, it was so funny. I was like, look, I said over to her, I was like, oh, I was going to probably eat it anyway. She's like, this is my first and only boyfriend. I've been with this man 20 years. You're probably safe. I was like, yeah, it would have been worse if you were eating my sandwich.
Yeah, she said, I don't have anything. I don't have anything.
I just want to know if they like sent it back out to a third person.
Yeah.
Like they would have ordered like
You would have.
a bacon and egg.
You would.
Yeah.
Someone inside maybe.
There's a
that-
cost of living crisis. You can't just throw away perfectly. Well, somewhat.
You just
perfectly good
one of
sandwich.
us goes back. Can we just keep that? Like,
Yeah.
And bro,
maybe another
like,
one, but like,
I'm so notorious for like not wanting to send things back.
Yeah.
Like I never do it. There's been a couple times where we've been out to breakfast and I've either ordered the wrong thing or they've fucked up my meal and like Cam's had to like go up and do it. I just
Yeah.
hate it
Yeah.
like so much. And so I
Confrontation.
I just still sat there. I was like, oh, I know there's a bite out of it, but maybe I just like let this one
yeah,
slide.
you're like weighing up if it's
Yeah,
gonna
and
ruin
you
your
guys
day
like,
or
no,
not.
fuck you, don't do it. I was like, okay, well, they're supporting me. I guess it's okay.
Yeah, we'll back you up.
So yeah.
That was cooked.
That was our Saturday.
That was so cooked.
Yeah. It's
I've never seen that before.
no.
It gave
Hope I
you
don't see
someone
it again
else's
either.
sandwich that
Yeah.
they started eating.
From the table next to us.
From the
like,
table next to us.
So the Cafe Diaries, episode 2.
yeah,
Yeah.
another one we've sunk.
We'll
Yeah.
see how long they last.
Yeah. And they've been in business for a while too, so if they go under, we can take
We
pride.
know,
in
Yeah,
yeah.
and by the way,
it's
I
us.
don't want it to go under because
Yeah.
that is my
That's
It's
cafe.
where
your
you
spot.
journal
Yeah.
every single Friday.
Just don't order any food.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
actually.
Your almond
What?
croissants never
Well,
have a bite out of them.
I do have the almond croissant
Yeah.
there, but it's never had a.
It's never had a bite.
Yeah.
Well, it has looked a bit rustic in the past, so now I'm actually doubting whether it was just a bitten croissant.
Oh, no.
Or it
Anyways,
wasn't
well-
almond croissant, it had just been there for like a week.
Yeah.
Damn it. Anyways, how was your day today?
It was good. Yeah. Stayed up at Cranda with Mira and saw her family.
Yeah.
And they came
Lovely.
down and it's been pretty chill.
Yep.
Oh,
Podcast.
Yeah, nice.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
groovy.
What about you
What about
guys?
Cam and I got up 5 this morning and went and did a run. So got about 42k, which was really, really nice.
Oh, just a quick marathon. You cranked out.
Just a trot.
Beautiful.
Nice sunrise trot. So that was really, really nice.
sunrise.
Yeah, and then after that, we just did some other productive stuff and have just had a really productive day, so it's fine. I didn't go back to bed and have a 2-hour nap, so we're all on the same page.
Yeah. We were
How's your day, bud?
winning.
And you went back to bed.
Yeah.
Doing the dishes after breakfast. I'm like, where'd Cam go?
Bro, we went back to the apartment, we made a cook up and we had it on the balcony and like I literally finished my last bite and I was like, right, well, that's me, and I just walked to my room. Basically the same thing I did yesterday.
Oh, and then got
Yeah.
up, came to the pod. Or
No. I've done like groceries and car stuff.
Oh,
just
that's
like
pretty
fix
good.
my car. Like I'm a car guy. It's fine.
Yeah, he's a car guy now.
You're a car guy.
Yeah, it's sure.
Scratched his car and now it's completely gone.
That I don't know. They must have just put that wall there. I've been parking in my parking garage for like 6 months now, and it's never been like that before. So
It is like a
they
pretty.
did.
Like,
Yeah, don't defend me. I deserve it.
Oh.
What about your Sunday morning breakfast?
Yeah, I went to breakfast at Vivo's at Palm Cove. That was gorgeous while the
Lovely.
weather was good.
Yeah.
And I've just come off the back of a rehearsrsal
Yeah.
with Mira.
First
Getting
gig
ready.
coming up.
First gig coming up on
Yeah.
Friday night.
gigs
Two
back to
gigs
back.
back to back.
Tickets, link in bio.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
both
Got
private.
invite.
Yes. Well, no, one's public, one's
Yeah, one's
private.
invite
only.
But
Yeah.
so Saturday will be a lot of fun for us.
Yeah.
It'll be Saturday, so we probably can't do pod. We're doing the law ball. That's what
Yeah.
we're
I
playing,
was
so
trying
it's
to
a
figure
big
this out
day.
too. Because
Yeah.
like,
What
are
are
we
we
going
gonna
to
do?
come in like after the law
We'll
ball?
figure it
Like,
out.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
Stay tuned.
We'll figure it out.
We
Anyways,
did one after Bex. We'll just run one back after.
Just post the same episode again.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah.
Can you just like change the voice a little bit or maybe edit it a bit
AI.
different?
Yeah, AI. Drake did it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I can do
Bro,
it.
you're so up to latest news and
I
trends.
know,
You're
it's pretty
awesome,
cool.
bro.
Have you heard of this beef?
Yeah.
Between
What's going on with it?
Yeah, who is it? Tell us.
Eminem and I think
Dr.
All
Dre?
Day.
Yeah.
Dr. Dre. I know him from his Beat headphones.
Yeah.
And nothing
Close.
else.
Close.
I was going to say too, like, you got two of your first gigs back to back. And
Yes,
some
as
people
a
don't
duo.
even get like any gigs of that number ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose if you don't play music, you don't get
Bro,
gigs.
it's
Yeah.
crazy. Since you added Mira to the band, you've started getting back-to-back gigs. Like, it's crazy.
okay,
yeah.
okay.
Like, I know she was a diversity hire, but it's gone so well. Hit those high notes, Mira.
I can't
As soon as
come
she
back
hears
from
this,
that.
she's gonna.
Please
I can't wait
She's
to
gonna
hear
kill you.
angelic voice on Friday night. Bro, I sent her song suggestions and they've just all been screamo. Just like suggestion after suggestion. So I'm really keen to hear them.
I was
come
really
out.
hoping
See
to
how
get
they
like
can
a hip hop cover in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll try. We'll try.
You're
Yeah,
already
you
still
got
adding
50
songs.
We just added another song today, yeah, so
So,
profesh.
yeah,
So-
this episode we're going to do a deep dive into rap beef, going back to the 1800s, and we're going to go year by year.
Yeah. Who was the
so
top rapper from
Beethoven.
1890?
Beethoven, Mozart.
No, what are we
What are we talking about today?
Lead us, Ben.
Yeah, I think we'll talk about finance in some capacity, or investing, or getting
Yeah.
started in
Yeah.
investing, or little tips and tricks. We're coming up to the end of financial year.
Yeah.
Maybe some like advice just generally for what people should be doing if they're
I
getting
think
into
so.
that.
Yeah.
That's a good one. So yes, for those who have been listening would know I'm a financial advisor.
Big
For
disclaimer.
those- yeah. Thank you for the reminder.
Massive, huge disclaimer.
Massive disclaimer.
This
anything
is
I
not a
say,
finance podcast.
anything I say
Yeah.
today is general in nature and should not be relied upon for your own personal financial matters.
It's like the
Also-
Miranda rights, bro. I've never heard the whole thing before.
I don't want to get sued, son.
Yeah.
Hell no.
What
Yeah.
if we set him up to this and then we sue
Yeah,
you?
we edit it so you take out the disclaimer.
This is all
and then we
personal
sue
financial
you for
advice.
every cent you have.
He told us
No,
to
thank
start
you.
that pyramid scheme.
Yeah.
No pyramid schemes
So-
today. No get rich quicks, but
well.
get rich slow.
Yeah.
Is the, actually, there you go. Podcast episode title: Get Rich Slow.
Yeah.
Not quite as clickbaity. We'll turn it back to Get Rich Quick.
Get rich quick, sorta.
Sorta. Yeah. So my job is I'm a financial advisor. So I help small business owners. I help individuals like yourselves try and I suppose maximize their money or make it work better for them.
Get some bank.
So one of the most popular things, other than people talking to me about crypto,
Yeah.
which is probably another episode. I don't really want to talk to it about it, but probably if we make the niche, maybe get started investing or the importance of investing.
Yeah.
Then we can do that and how to do it, because it's kind of a minefield and it's across all ages, but probably for our listener base, 25 to 35-year-olds,
Yeah.
it's probably pretty pertinent that
Yeah.
you listen to this episode
And get started
and get
right
started.
Yeah, get started yesterday.
Yeah.
now.
So what do you guys, I suppose, want to know about?
Is it ever too late? Because obviously
Is it ever too late?
Got a
Yeah.
big range of age groups.
Yeah,
and
fair.
Listening to us, so
Yeah, I guess like what's sort of your take on it other than all Ben's advice that he's shared with us?
shared with us. Yeah.
Yeah.
So all in on high risk.
Let's go.
Yeah, no, just small bits early. So just putting a little bit away over a prolonged time. It absolutely exploded my brain, that graph that we saw on LinkedIn, the difference between if you start at 25 versus 35. I think it's like $600,000 versus like $2 million over the 10 years. So that's been my goal.
Your background.
Yeah.
I feel pretty lucky in terms of when I was getting into like self-development and business books and stuff like that when I was still in uni, like around 20 years old. My mum, for example, got books like around like Noel Whittaker.
The
OG, Millionaire Next Door and that sort of stuff. So that was really good sort of perspective on really getting that mindset around it.
OG like financial advice still relevant? 'Cause like anytime anyone wants to delve into this area, straight to Barefoot Investor.
Yes.
I haven't read it, to be honest.
He's the new guy on
Really?
the block. Yeah, well, Barefoot, Scott Pape, he kind of made the personal finance movement cool.
Yeah.
And accessible.
And there were guys like Paul Clitheroe and Noel Whittaker, like you said. They're in Australia. They were like the OGs in the 80s, 90s for like finance.
Yeah.
But then Scott Pape, Barefoot Investor, he is a financial advisor. I think he was, maybe you could say he's the first finfluencer. Like the finance influencer, and a lot of influencers are coming under heat in the last couple of years, but he kind of turned the whole finance game on its head with Barefoot Investor.
Especially for Australia, like the amount of like coffee tables I've seen that book on in people's houses.
It's still one of the highest selling books. It's always on like top 20 book lists still to this day, which is incredible. So I have read Barefoot, take it with a grain of salt. The original, he mentions a lot of products like the ING savings accounts, Hester super funds and stuff like that. That's where you got to be careful in the world of investing is products. There's so much out there and it changes so quickly that what Scott was talking about in Barefoot Investor years ago with you set up your Mojo account and you set up all your ING debit cards and everything like that, may not be relevant right now, but when you start putting products in books, it gets a bit murky.
Just pick an age. But isn't that like the benefit of having such a like flooded kind of product is like there is that competitiveness. Like when we were talking about those super saving accounts, they have to be competitive with each other to offer the best product. So is it just about putting the time and effort into researching and seeing what's the best for you?
Ideally, and I think people, Gen Zers probably particularly, are, I would say, the generation out of everybody taking more accountability for their finances.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I've spoken to some like 22-year-olds that have come into the office. I got this job when I was, I think, 27, and I didn't even know it existed, financial advisor, yet. Because I just thought there was accounting and then there was stockbroking. And then there was this middle ground called financial advice.
Yeah.
And I'm now seeing 22-year-olds come into the office to say, hey, I want to, take charge of my finances. How can you guide me? I would have never thought to have approached a financial advisor when I was 22. So hats off to Gen Zers who are absolutely nailing it with their finances to a degree and jumping on the investing train. So back to that original point about the difference between investing now and investing in, say, like 10 years. That's the magic of compounding. And Albert Einstein actually said that compounding is the eighth wonder of the world. So it's pretty incredible that you can have, we can each get, say, 8% return on our money. We can each get 8%, but I could have $1 million and you could have $1,000. The return is the exact same. So it's almost like a level playing field in investing, which makes it cool because there are some advantages that you can get. But for the most part, if you have discipline and you stick to a strategy over the long term, you're pretty much guaranteeing wealth for yourself at some point in the future. So you may not be able to be rich right now, but your odds of becoming rich in the future, if you're investing, compounding, disciplined over time, it's pretty high. And so there's nothing really else in the world that can, I suppose, boost your odds for wealth generation without you having to put the legwork into it. Because if we want to, because we talk about hustle culture and everything like that, it takes so much work, right? It takes the labor. doing this podcast, it is taking the labor out of our weekends, right? We could just be stuffing around, but instead we come in here religiously every weekend. Yeah. So that's kind of what investing is about. It's about having a sacrifice now to ensure kind of greatness down the track. And there's nothing else in the world that you can just chuck something into on an ongoing basis. And one day it is just going to just pay dividends and give you this passive income stream everyone's chasing, because everything else, you have to go to job. You have to go to work. You know, you have to generate an income. You're actually using your labor. You're working for somebody, or yourself, Brody. You're self-employed. You're a small business owner. You have to put in so much legwork to earn a dollar. Whereas with investing, you're sacrificing a little bit of coin for something that will actually generate you an income without having to put any labor behind earning that money. I can't think of any other concept on earth which can just generate you an ongoing income without working for it. And you could say, well, if you get your business up to a point where you're like the boss, and then that just generates income
to a point.
There's no small business owner that's going to say, hey, it's true passive income being a small business owner, because it's a 24/7 job.
Yeah. I think the way that I've always seen it as well is like, you're going to have to work a job or a business or anything like that. You're going to have some sort of career. But if you're not taking action now to start that investing, it's sort of like you're setting yourself up for failure, because if you do start now, you've got that to fall back on, say in 40 years time, where it has sort of compounded over that time. So you might as well get started now rather than waiting for it, because again, you can still like overextend yourself and achieve whatever you want.
Absolutely.
This is like at least a backup where you're still going to have that wealth.
What's really interesting too is I feel like investing's almost become like a little bit of a buzzword. Like it's like thrown around a lot. Like you go, you win $1 million. What's the first thing you do? Like buy my dream car and then invest the rest of it. It's like, okay, but how would you invest it? And I think it's like something everyone knows that they should be doing, but it's still seems like an complicated concept of like, because there's obviously you can invest in stocks, you can invest in real estate, businesses, all these other different streams. So when we are talking about investing, do we want to break that down a little bit into what that actually means and what it looks like?
Good point.
So investing to me means you're investing in an asset. And an asset, the definition is something that can generate cash flows. So when people talk about crypto being, I'm investing in crypto, I'm investing in crypto assets. I don't know enough about crypto, but I'm pretty certain that crypto doesn't pay dividends like BHP would pay dividends. Okay. So to me, it's just this speculative digital concept that has no intrinsic value. So investing to me means you're investing and you're sacrificing some of your capital right now to put it into something that could potentially generate profits and cash flow. That is what the whole system is based on. It's based on capitalism. And for the last 100+ years, it has worked. Yes, the stock market has dipped and everything like that, but it has only gone one direction the whole time. So for getting started, I suppose we could pivot how to get started into investing. We might as well jump straight to it.
That's true.
Go for it.
I was just going to say, like if someone's coming into this and has no idea, I think, like again, if you're just picking up stuff from like pop culture and stuff, you always hear, you just got to buy some shares or something, buy some stocks or something.
Where are the shares? Where do I buy them?
What am I buying? So what would you sort of say?
There was a good point you mentioned that I was going to talk about, where you're talking about how, investing is becoming more like a buzzword and it's becoming more popular. I think it's becoming more gamified. And there are lots of apps out there which you got to be careful of, which gamify investing, because they were certainly gamifying the what would you call them? The financial products for GameStop, and people were playing those finance apps where they were leveraging up, and kids are now in debt for the rest of their lives because they were treating investing as this game. And like it's successful. Like the whole gamified model is successful. Like look at Duolingo. Like that's a game, but you're learning a language. I think there's a problem when you're turning a game into your life savings. So be careful of the platforms that you want to invest in. And when we say invest, let's just be general about it. I'm talking for most people probably listening to get started with minimal capital. I would be saying, again, this is not personal finance, it's general. Generally speaking, ETF products are the shit right now. And so what ETFs is exchange traded fund. Normally in our parents' lifetime, if they wanted to get into investing, they had to go to a stockbroker, and a stockbroker had to buy physical shares in certain companies, in individual companies, that way. It wasn't, you couldn't just log onto your computer and just do it. But now there's so many what we call brokerage platforms, which are the platforms like your ComSec and your NAB trade and stuff like that, where you can actually dump some money in, small capital. We can get started investing with $500. You dump it in, and then me personally, what I have is ETFs. So my philosophy towards the stock market is that you can't beat it over the long term, because what the stock market is, it's a billion players playing the game every single day. That's what the stock market is. It's almost like a zero-sum game. There has to be a winner and a loser every single day, because when you buy a stock, someone's got to sell it on the proviso that they are thinking they're getting the best amount for it. You're buying it thinking you're getting the best amount for it. You come to the table, a deal is made. Now that's happening millions and millions of times every microsecond around the world. Now,
Monday to Friday or Monday to Sunday?
All well,
which,
markets are closed Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
But it's, if you're invested globally, well then your portfolio will never sleep, because we go to sleep. Our markets close at 4 p.m. But the US one is charging. So what do we invest in, and where do we invest? Again, ETFs. Now, what's an ETF? It's a bundle of a bunch of shares. That's what it is.
The top performing?
Yeah. Well, not top performing, but probably, generally speaking, I suppose you could say top performing. What we'd call the S&P 200. You might have seen that on the news every single night. The S&P 500 has done this. The NASDAQ has done this. These are just indexes for a whole stack of different companies. So if we talk about the S&P 200, that is the top 200 companies on the Australian stock market. That's your BHP, it's all your banks and everything. Like, it's your mining stocks, it's Woolies, it's Coles, it's everything.
I was just going to say, like, and a good point to that, why would you say this is better to invest in 200 companies rather than just someone picking one stock?
Great question, Brody. Because over the long term, if you can buy the whole market, then you can collect the average return on the market over the long term. And the average is something that most people should be very happy with, because the reason we invest, in my opinion, there's one golden rule why we want to invest. And it's not just to make money. It's not just to get passive income. We invest because we need our money to beat inflation. That is the golden rule, I think, in my opinion, for investing. There is this crazy concept called inflation, where a bag of groceries now is a rort from our major grocery chains. It's ridiculous.
Whole other episode there.
So $50 for a bag of groceries 3 years ago is not $50 for a bag of groceries now. So we go, well, what's the solution to making our money, which is sitting in the bank, making it go further? The solution, in my opinion, is investing, because over the long term, investing in the stock market, investing in property, that is pretty much the only thing that's been able to outperform inflation over the long term. That means investing over the long term will help your money keep up with everything else and will hopefully outperform the inflation, which is chewing at your money. And money in the bank is still susceptible to inflation. So money in the bank is kind of plateauing, if not, depending on inflation, going backwards. So why we invest in, I suppose, a bundle of shares instead of a single share? Because you got to hope to God that Netflix is going to be the best share over the next 20 years, and hopefully that there's no competition to Netflix over 20 or controversy over 20 years for Netflix. Now, if you look at the Netflix stock price, it was a dud, an absolute dud of a company for such a long period of time. Only some people stuck it out.
Yeah.
There was a point, I think it was Blockbuster Video. They went to Blockbuster Video and said, you know, you want to like give us some money and, you know, and
buy us out.
Buy us out. And Blockbuster went, nah, that's a crazy concept to have all this like streaming stuff. We think we'll be here for a while with our bricks and mortar and videotapes and DVDs. Next minute, it's all over. But
so what happens there? Like, you know how they always say like the fairly safe ones is like your banks,
your blue chip shares,
blue chips, all those are normally pretty standard. Like when something like this is happening with Woolworths and Coles, where we've got the inquiry, and they're potentially going to take a dip, that is kind of shaking up the whole concept of blue chip, or they do bounce back.
Well, in Australia, for that example with Woolies and Coles, it's such a monopoly in the market. So even though there's players like IGA and Aldi and all that stuff, they're nowhere near the market cap and size of those two. And that's the problem in Australia, is that in America, they've got heaps of competitors, but in Australia, it's Coles and Woolies, and they like it that way. Now, you could say just buy Coles and Woolies shares knowing that there's a monopoly, and over the long term, if there's no competition, where else are you going to get your groceries? So it could be cool. But the benefit of buying a bundle of shares with an ETF is that, yes, at any point in time, companies can go under and they can fault. Now, if you put all your eggs in one basket, well, then that's the end of your investing journey. But if you invest in an ETF, companies go into that fund and out of that fund all the time. Companies go bust whether you know it or not. But because you're buying the market average, be cool that over the long term, you will surf it.
Hence why it's long term.
Hence why it's long term. You're not buying ETFs for the short term. Just like I don't buy, in terms of a time period for investing, you should be parting with your money for, I'd like to think, at least 7 years. If you can do without the money for 7 years, you should be, it's enough time to ride the highs and the lows and then back up to the highs. You should go through a couple of cycles in 7 years. Ideally, if you can invest for more than that, that's what you're doing. And that is why we have superannuation in Australia. It's because the government back in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s went, we cannot afford to pay every single Australian the age pension. It ain't going to happen. So then they came up with, well, let's make it a bit of a benefit to putting money into this thing called superannuation. And everyone, whether you know it, if you're employed, you're getting superannuation. Therefore, you are investing, because all superannuation is, it's just the stock market. That's all it is. It's just the stock market.
At a higher percentage.
No, not even a higher percentage, but it's, if you compared a bunch of shares in super and the exact same bunch of shares in your personal name, the one in super will outperform over the long term because, nothing special, but because super has a tax rate of 15%. Whereas your tax rate, if you're earning good money, could be 40, 42%, 45%. Even if it's the same investment, as long as it's in that lower tax rate of super, it'll outperform.
That's crazy.
Just taking a couple steps back, so we're talking about this great idea of investing in like an S&P 500. Sounds super easy. We set up, we go to a trader or a website and do that. What's the downside? So I know sometimes they can be like really expensive fees and they can like outweigh the returns that you're getting back. So what are we looking for? Where do people get bitten? How are we choosing which site we decide to go with? What's the background there?
Great question. A lot of criteria for how to get stuck into investing, because there's so many platforms out there. Some just want to take advantage. Pros and cons, but my approach to things is, if I can just strip it back to bare basics and get the underlying asset, I don't need all the fancy features, because fancy features didn't exist when the stock market was kicking off. But
what are these fancy features though?
Fancy features is like the platform has, reporting functions, and you can buy international options contracts and all weird stuff. Or they'll package it up into something called like the spaceship launch fund or something like that. And they're trying to make things super easy for those that don't understand.
Yeah.
Otherwise, how else do you know which ETFs to invest in? Fortunately, I can tell you.
Yeah.
But a lot
For
of
a
people,
price.
yeah, not advice.
No,
I can tell
for
you
a price.
For a price,
For
he
a
said, yeah.
price, yeah, absolutely for a price. But they're kind of like the fancy features I'm talking about. I like to go to platforms where just strip it back and give me the bare basic of a bundle of companies in an ETF that can just ride the index. And when I say the index, that's like your S&P 200, your S&P 500. It's this bundle of shares that an agency has put together to go, this is the top 200 companies, this is the top 500 companies. There are probably two major players in this space. There's one called Vanguard and the other one's called BlackRock. BlackRock's the biggest. We could actually do a deep dive on BlackRock.
Yeah,
We get a bit conspiracy theory with BlackRock. I'll bug that.
We have a beer or two and it's straight down conspiracy theories. And rabbit holes.
Yeah. So I'll park the conspiracy theories for now, but look into Vanguard if you want. Look into BlackRock if you want. Again, not advice. I'm just saying these are two large companies. No. But these are the two main companies that issue probably the most popular ETFs in the world.
Yeah.
Because they're so big, they offer it so cheap.
Yeah.
So the cheapest ETFs that you could probably get your hand on is BlackRock and Vanguard. Now, very similar in what you're buying. You can buy an Aussie ETF, which is like the S&P 200. You can buy the S&P 500 Global or the US one, which is like the American/international equivalent.
Yeah.
If you had a portfolio of just, as Aussies, if you just had the S&P 200 ETF and the S&P 500, you're probably sorted for the next 30 years.
Yeah.
In all honesty, you could just keep putting money into that dollar cost averaging and ride that into eternity, and it will just pay off in the long run.
Yeah.
Unless something completely insane happens in the stock market, which clients talk to me about all the time. They read the news, and they freak out about something. There's a war everywhere. Well, what's happening with this war? And it was just like, well, what happened with Russia and Ukraine?
Yeah.
That was going to end the world, wasn't it? What happened with COVID? That was going to end the world.
Gonna be dead before we have to worry about the money coming out anyway.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I feel like that's another point of buying into index funds and ETFs compared to just say trying to manage it yourself is there's a whole team, a whole company dedicated to managing these funds. Where like if you're trying to manage a stock that you purchase yourself, then you're there stressing about like, is this going up? Is it going down? It's on the back of your mind. You're constantly checking it. Whereas like if you're investing into these funds, then that sort of takes the pressure off you. Would you say?
It does take the pressure off because now there's a cost to taking the pressure off.
Yeah.
'Cause it's not free.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you buy a stock on the exchange, if you go onto your brokerage platform and you just decide I want to buy some Woolies shares, you can pay the market price for those Woolies shares. It might be $50 a share. Okay, you've parted with your money. What that stock price does, there is no more cost to you as the investor. You've outlaid your capital to buy it at the market price. The deal is now done. There's no more cost to you as an investor. That can either go up, it can go down. It doesn't matter. You've paid your dues. However, with ETFs, it takes the pressure off diversifying for you, right? It takes the pressure off investing and choosing the right bundle of stocks because you're paying a manager to do it. Now, that is not free. That's the difference between buying individual stocks and buying ETFs. ETFs and managed funds and anything that's pooling a bunch of assets together, you got to look for something called the management expense ratio, MER. And that is always expressed as a percentage, and that is a percentage on the value of your purchase. Whether you get dividends or not, if there is a percentage on that product, it is a percentage of the balance at every single day.
If it's in the negative, then they
as in like if it's gone down in price.
Yeah, if your share.
Doesn't matter. It's still 0.1 on the lower amount of money.
Yeah.
Yeah. They never not make money, but you'll just have a lower market value in your investment.
Yeah. Okay.
But it will... This is what happens when people think like, well, what happens if I lose all my money?
Yeah.
For you to lose all your money, for it to go to zero in index funds and ETFs, this is how I explain it to clients. For you to lose all your money to zero, it means every single company pretty much has to go insolvent. Now, if you're invested in hundreds and hundreds of companies in ETFs, for the S&P 200 to go broke, that would be the end of probably the Australian society.
I have pretty bad luck. I wouldn't be surprised.
You stay away from my investing then.
You see me at the couch on a Friday night. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So there's probably the best place to start.
Yeah.
Look at those two big companies and start researching in ETFs.
I was going to say one thing that you mentioned. I love it. One thing that you mentioned before is dollar cost averaging.
Yeah.
So could you explain that as a strategy to people that might not know what that is?
Yep. So I've looked
right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. So I've looked into the research in this because there's two alternative ways to invest. You can either invest a big chunk of lump sum cash that you have in one go and then sit on it and never do anything with it, or you can invest a little bit on a regular basis over an extended period of time. So you may go, all right, I have $5,200 to invest on 1 January, okay? You may just decide, I'm going to dump that in to an ETF in one hit, and I'll just ride it for a year until the next year in 1 Jan, I'll dump another 5,200. The alternative is dollar cost averaging, which is, well, instead of that 5,200 dumped on January 1st, on the first of each month, I'm going to dump $400 odd. So I'm going to dump I'll dump $100 a week into my investment. At 31 December, we may have the exact same investment balance. It'll be 5,200 I've spent. Over the long term, they neither really outperform each other considerably. So whether you're choosing to invest a big chunk right now, or whether you just want to you don't have the big chunk, but you don't want to miss out, so you can afford $100 a week. Over the long term, don't stress. It will probably perform very similarly to if you dumped it in a lump.
The difference being if you've got that money sitting in your savings or not.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So neither is really outperforming each other.
Yeah.
Why I prefer dollar cost averaging over the lump sum investing is because timing of the market and when you decide to dump in. Now, if I decide to dump in every single year on 1st of January, what happens if the market was doing really well? If it's doing really well, that means I'm technically buying high, right? But what happens if the next year it's really low? Well, then I'm buying the dip. I'm buying low. So you might be buying really expensive or you might be buying cheap. Whereas with dollar cost averaging, if you invest every week, because the market moves around so much, you'll be buying high and low all the time, which means over the long term, it's probably going to just average out well.
Yeah.
Whereas lump sum investing, you're taking a punt that, well, I hope the market's doing good today, or it's at this time, or it's not. So that's why I prefer one over the other. Not only that, it's the psychological element that people can't get their heads around, which anyone can get investments these days. You don't have to see me to invest, right? But where people fall over is no discipline. And people are actually paying a financial advisor. Their value is to hold your hand for the next however long you want to pay me for to guide you through this world of investing. And when there are big dips like COVID or the GFC, I make sure that you don't freak out and dump your money somewhere. That is kind of my value. I guide people.
Yeah, you hear that a lot as well, like psychologically, when the market starts tanking and stuff like that. People are like, you need to sell, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So it like builds people's
Again,
anxiety
you're
up.
the expert in that area, so they feel valued, trust you. It's the same thing like they were talking about, like with real estate agent, all these other different, like when it comes to money, you want the best dealing with that. Next question. So we're talking about what you've got to work with. So you've got all your money in ANZ or Commonwealth savings account. You're getting 2.3% back. Versus getting 8 to 10 if it's in an ETF. What's stopping you just dumping your entire savings into that investment portfolio and just letting that kind of build up and that interest back instead of kind of
Yep.
keeping on hold of it.
Yeah. That comes down to developing a financial strategy for someone as to how much we leave in savings and then how much we decide to invest.
As far as like emergency money?
Emergency funds. That's what it comes down to. So that's front of mind for me as a financial advisor. If someone comes to me and they're 22 and they go, I've got 10 grand to invest, fantastic. How much you got in savings? Or 10 grand. I would say, look, it's not time for you yet.
So that might be the time to do like the weekly.
You could try the weekly.
Yeah,
You could try just with the $500 and just do the dollar cost averaging.
Yeah.
But where I like to start with, if you have an emergency fund of about 3 to 6 months worth of lifestyle expenditure. So if you didn't have a job for 3 to 6 months and you just had to pay bills, your mortgage, or just food on the table, that is an adequate emergency fund in my opinion.
Yeah.
So if you do the tally in your head and what do you roughly spend on food and stuff to keep you alive for 3 months, say, if you can have that, then I would be comfortable that you can start your investing journey. But if you're paycheck to paycheck, investing would probably be a very daunting and demoralizing process for you, especially if the market goes down and you're paycheck to paycheck and you really needed that $100. That would probably psychologically ruin your investing journey for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So
Didn't even thought of that.
so that's probably where if you can I think platforms like Vanguard Personal Investor, which again, not advice, but I think you can start with $500 on that one, and you can do dollar cost averaging for pretty much any amount.
Yeah.
It's very flexible.
$1 a week.
Yeah.
Start steady.
Yeah.
The fees. Chewed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think of like those? So I mean, there's so many different apps as we talked about.
Like
what about
Raise
those
and stuff?
Yeah, Raise and stuff. Yeah. Are you a fan of those or like?
Nah, not at all.
Yeah.
So nothing against those guys, and I'm clearly, if I become a finfluencer, I'll never get sponsorship from them.
Yeah.
But those apps like Raise and Acorn and stuff like that. So what they are is them called micro investing apps.
Yeah.
And what they're doing is every time you tap your card on your phone, if you pay for a coffee and it's $4.75. Well, actually, first that's cheap coffee.
Yeah.
Let's sorry,
numbers
$6.
for your example.
Let's say $6.50 for your coffee.
$8.50 and your
decade are we
firstborn
in?
child.
Yeah, $6.50 for your coffee.
Yeah.
What you can set the parameter on those apps, round up to the nearest dollar, not round down, round up to the nearest dollar. And so what it's going to do is it's going to go, well, I'm paying $6.50 for the coffee, but 50 cents up to $7. 50 cents is going into your micro investing app, and we're going to invest that 50 cents. And the idea is that all you're tapping is all the rounding, therefore you're investing without having to think about investing. To make any real ground, if you're rounding with those things, you have to be spending tens of thousands of dollars to get anything remotely effective to invest. Where you fall over with those apps, just like a credit card, it will be a positive feedback loop where you're happy to tap and spend purely because you're justifying it to yourself to go, you know what, I'm investing. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Something that you would have never normally bought if you just had a regular debit card, you're now going, well, it's okay because I'm investing, and Ben said investing is good.
Yeah.
So that's where I don't like those micro investing apps.
Coming back to the psychology of it.
It's the psychology of it, and
Yeah.
we're probably good for time, so we could make this a part 2 if we needed to.
Yeah.
But the psychology is so important. I want people to take charge of their investing, because if you're actually dedicated and you're motivated to do it, you will prioritize investing and you will make it a part of your weekly household budget and not just this flippant thing that you chuck a couple cents to every time you tap your card. That is not investing, in my opinion. Investing is it's intentional.
Yeah.
And if I want to invest $5,200 by the end of the year as my goal, by God, I'm going to be doing some kind of direct debit autopilot. $100 a week comes out of my account and into my Vanguard portfolio or into my BlackRock portfolio. And I'll talk about probably the approach in another episode because that is where the real magic is.
I think this is awesome though. Like, such a great
start.
insight to start for people.
And like at the end of the day, you don't just want people coming to you, giving you a lump sum of money and say do something with it. It's like you
That's
want
the
to
wrong attitude.
educate them, and
100%.
you want to take them on that journey and support them.
And then something you also said is like that's more about actually setting them up for the long term, whereas people can actually start getting it themselves. Like they don't have to necessarily come to you. Even though they're going to learn so much, just like we all have. But over the long term.
So steps from here, if you are interested in getting financial advice, come see me.
This is Ben talking, by the way.
I will then pass you on to Ben after a small finder's fee. So, feel free to reach out.
That commish.
My details are in the bio.
Yeah. Also, because I'm a legit financial advisor, I can actually even have that arrangement with you to pay the commission on the referral. So I just want to make that clear as well. There's no commission.
A whole other episode on what you can do is people who look like financial advisors but don't have the accreditation. That is
Go into that.
That's it. That's the influences. If I can leave with one note to, if you take anything away, I know we talk about books on this podcast. The Psychology of Money. Have you read it?
Yes.
Morgan Housel.
Yeah.
Psychology of Money.
Too.
Yeah.
Good book.
And that book is always in the top 10 non-fiction book lists in Australia.
Yeah.
The Psychology of Money. It is not a Barefoot Investor book. It is not a personal finance, like this is what you do with this bucket and superannuation. It is probably the best money book, in my opinion, to change your approach and attitude.
And how you view money.
How you view money and what is actually really important. And this is my life. Like investing and finance and everything, that it's my life and it's my livelihood. The more I learn about it and the intricacies of it, the more I peel it back for what is actually most important. But you got to learn all the stuff to actually realize what's important in the investing journey. And people get caught up in the noise and they don't see the forest through the trees. Whereas I'm privileged that I can spend swathes of time delving into this because I'm paid to do it, just for me to, I suppose, tell you in an easy to understand manner what's actually really important. And probably the key pieces of advice, key things that I've said today, do it over the long term, be intentional and disciplined with it, broad-based investments, not stock picking, and read The Psychology of Money. I think if you just took those things on board, don't get caught up in the noise. If you just take those
fads or the trends.
Fads or the trends, because Warren Buffett has been doing pretty much the same thing for his entire life, and compounding and long-term investing has paid off for him and millions and billions of people around the world. So try that.
That's awesome. So apply those.
Educated just leaving this room today.
Good.
100%.
Good man.
Apply those and we'll come back for episode 2.
Yeah, that's it. Cheers,
Thank you.
guys.
Thanks,
Peace.
guys. Thanks, Ben.